Cartoonist Scott Adams is here. For 10 years, Dilbert, his cartoon creation, has offered a sardonic look at contemporary corporate culture and the plight of the modern-day office worker. It has become the fastest-growing comic strip in syndication, appearing in more than 1,900 newspapers with a worldwide readership of about 150 million. With its success, the Dilbert phenomenon has transcended the comic page. In the past 3 years, the cartoon has spanned a vast empire, which includes best-selling books, an internet site, and over 700 Dilbert-inspired products. In January, the animated television series Dilbert debuted on UPN, and here is a clip from the series.
Mom, it would be a lot easier to talk to you if I could see you.
I'm not here. I'm at the Warehouse Shopping Club with a moving van.
I am pleased to have Scott Adams join us now for a conversation about his guy, Dilbert. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thanks for having me.
Charles Schulz was on this program once, and he said that he thinks that along with jazz, comic strips are the one pure American art form. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think so. You know, the best cartoonists are probably coming out of the United States. I think we kind of own this art form, so I'll go with that.
Yeah, is that most of the best come out of the United States? Is that not, I mean, how prevalent are cartoons around the world?
Well, they're everywhere,
They
but
didn't originate here.
You know, I say that ours are the best because I can't read those other languages, so they don't do much for me.
Do you need to read them to sort of get the sense of them?
Well, some of them, it helps, yeah.
How did it come about for you?
Well, for me, it was the shortest version of the story is that I was working at Pacific Bell in my little cubicle, and one day I bought a book on how to become a cartoonist. I'd always been a doodler, and I read the directions in the book, and it tells you how to send off your cartoons to various syndication companies. And I sent off my little photocopies to half a dozen companies, and United Media called me and said, how would you like to be a syndicated cartoonist? And I said, I said I would like that.
How long had you thought about it?
Since I was 6 years old, probably. Literally, I think I learned to read by looking at Peanuts books. And I thought, you know, this looks like a much better job than, you know, my uncle who's a farmer. I mean, that looks like hard work, this drawing pictures. Good job.
And how much of Dilbert is you?
I've estimated that at least a third of Dilbert is me. Got the same glasses, had that same cubicle job. I've had his luck. But he's also a composite of people I've worked with.
Yeah. Schulz, I think, said that Charlie Brown was 60% him and 40% of his imagination. So you're saying it's 33% of you, a composite of other people, and then maybe a third.
Yeah, I'd say it's about 70% people that I've known directly, and about a third me, personally.
Yeah. The notion of Dilbert, how do you explain this phenomenon?
Well, it's one of those things that seems really obvious after you do it.
Yeah.
But here were, I don't know, 45 million people in the United States alone who were in cubicles, and they had no voice. They had all this common experience, but they had no way to express it. And so when I started doing cartoons, originally I wasn't really focusing on his office life. But after I started running my email and people said, we like that office stuff you keep doing, I started doing more of it. It was just a kind of an obvious thing to do. And people said, you know, you're talking for us. So it became huge, kind of accidentally.
Yeah. Does the television series enhance the cartoon, or does it change anything?
It's really a different form. I've likened drawing a cartoon strip to, it's like sticking your finger in moist soil and planting a little seed, and maybe a little plant comes up. Whereas a TV show is kind of like bulldozing a rainforest. You know, it's just a whole different thing. It's bigger, it's louder, there's sound, there's, you know, lots of movement. They got mouths on TV. There are no mouths in the comic strip. It was very different.
And the purist, do they say, did you get any percentage of the people who love Dilbert saying, you know, I don't like the television series, I like the cartoon because...
Yeah, you hear from them first.
Yeah, exactly.
They weigh in first. The angry people are always the ones who are most motivated.
You're ruining a good thing, Mr. Adams.
Well, usually you got people who said, he didn't have a mouth in the cartoon strip, and he should not have a mouth. You know, they were used to the way they liked it. But overwhelmingly, the response has been positive.
And the website, you get, what, 4 million hits a week? Or
it's a lot. I think we make up that number, but it's
exactly.
some big number, whatever
and what
number
does that say? What do you get on the internet?
Well, the internet was how we really managed to get into a lot of newspapers. We kind of, it's really reverse logic. You would think that You would think that the internet would kind of kill your newspaper business, but it allowed us to be known in places before it ran in the newspaper, and then the newspaper would pick it up because it already had a base.
Let me just talk about Dilbert and his principles, which make such sense to most people who live in a corporate environment or in a bureaucratic environment, too. One of the principles is that the least competent people get promoted to management positions where they can do the least damage.
Yeah, that's the Dilbert principle in a nutshell, and it kind of makes sense because, you know, if you go to the hospital, you want to be operated on by the smartest surgeon.
Yeah.
So you want the smart people to be doing the work,
yeah,
writing your computer programs, you know, doing your surgery. And you want the guy who's running the staff meeting and deciding whether or not you can afford the donuts.
Yeah.
I mean, you want that guy to be in management. So it actually makes sense in a strange kind of way.
And give me some other Dilbert principles that you think have made a difference and have caught the fancy of your fans.
Well, really, the thing about bosses that drives people wild is that the boss is the only person who can, first of all, ruin whatever you're working on, can ruin your project for you, can blame you for it, and then thirdly, can punish you for screwing up. Yeah. So nobody else in your life can do that to you. So that's the worst thing. But my favorite stories are where they have their motivational message doesn't quite match their intent. For example, one company was measuring the morale of their employees and used that as one of the bases for the bonuses. Right. And when the morale wasn't high enough, they decided to withhold the bonus until morale went up. I mean, you know, it made sense on some level, I'm sure.
Yeah. How important was you when this book became #1?
It was huge. You know, I got to tell you, when it hit #2, for a long time, it was right behind Dennis Rodman's book. And it was just stuck there for week after week, and I would open a paper, and I was actually convincing myself that being #2 on the bestseller list was great. You know, that was fine. It was as good as you could get. And when it finally popped and went to #1, I found out how entirely wrong I had been. I'd been, you know, fooling myself. #1 is much better.
But what are other big moments in your life in terms of your life with Dilbert?
I would say probably the biggest moment is when United Media called and said, we got your submission package.
That's a big moment.
And said, we'd like you to be a cartoonist. And I'd never even had a job as a cartoonist before, and suddenly I was in business.
You were how old at that time?
I was about 30.
Yeah. I mean, could you have done this at 21?
No, I don't think so, no, because you're always drawing from your experience. And I guess I would have had to do a cartoon about drinking beer and being in college or whatever I was doing at 21.
The name Dilbert?
Dilbert was named actually by a coworker at Pacific Bell. Originally he was a doodle that I would always do at work, and he didn't have a name and people kept asking me, so I actually had a contest and people submitted names. And when my boss at the time, Mike Goodwin, came in and said, you know, I think his name should be Dilbert. That was it. I mean, I
hit
closed
you right away.
Well, I closed the contest. I'm sure that was his name. It wasn't like I was assigning a name. It was like that was his name.
All right. Roll tape here. This is a flashback to his youth in which Dilbert recollects the first time he realized that he had a knack for technology and that he would become an engineer. Here it is.
The part that worries me is he used the components to build a ham radio set.
Oh, dear.
Is that bad?
As we look at that character who's been so embraced by corporate America, why? What is it that is the essence of that bond?
You know, I think everything you ever saw about corporate America was kind of the boss's eye view, and you never really saw it from the employee's point of view. So Dilbert kind of takes that, you know, I'm suffering in the cubicle point of view. So people just relate to it.
Now, there was a guy named Norman Solomon, right, who wrote a book called, what was it called, The Troubles with Dilbert?
Right.
Which he said that Dilbert wasn't really the voice of the worker.
Yes, it was a very interesting case where he wrote a book railing against the capitalism that was embraced in Dilbert, and that maybe Dilbert was actually harming the workers somehow by teaching them helplessness. To which I say, maybe you should get a sense of humor about this. It is, after all, a cartoon.
Yeah. But there is this about the cartoon. You are paid silly sums of money to talk to corporate executives and corporations around America, because they view you, the writer of a cartoon, as a management expert.
I know, that's the great irony of this whole thing is if you mock something long enough,
Yes.
that you will be perceived as somehow having some actual knowledge, when in fact all I am is a mocker. You know, I can mock anything. I can mock, medicine, but it doesn't mean I can be a doctor.
But they say he so skillfully makes fun of us, he must know something about us. So therefore, let's hear him, because in the end, they want to know what it is about us that's so ludicrous.
There's utility in mocking. Because people find out, if I do this thing, will I be mocked to death? My best example was, this really happened. Companies would start taking out insurance companies on employees because a consultant told them that if they did that and they paid the premiums for them, but also collected when the employee died, that the employee is no impact on the employee because they're not paying for it. But you could make money when the insurance policy paid off. But to the employee, it's just more evidence that they're worth more dead.
If you go from cartoons to books to the internet to television, what comes after the internet and television?
Well, we're working on a product called the Dilbert.
What's that?
You may have heard of. Is a burrito. It's a food item, and it's got 23 of your vitamins and minerals. So if you ate it, you'd have 100% of what you needed of those 23 vitamins and minerals. And it's kind of branded with Dilbert, the Dilbert. And so I formed a company to create that. So I've got a virtual company that has one employee, but has a worldwide reach right now. And I guess I get to show what I do know about management at this point.
Scott Adams, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you on the broadcast. Back in a moment. Stay with us.